fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
Hey! It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
So let's start with the president's appointment of Matthew Whitaker as acting attorney general. Here's what he said about Whitaker on Friday and what he said about him last month.
I don't know Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker worked for Jeff Sessions.
I can tell you Matt Whitaker's a great guy. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker.
So, does the president know Matt Whitaker or not? And specifically, did he know before appointing him that Whitaker was a critic of the special counsel's investigation?
The president does know Matt Whitaker, has gotten to know him over the course of the last year since he has been the chief of staff to the attorney general. The president's point is it's not like he's putting a friend in there who he's known for his entire life. He's putting somebody who has been working at the Department of Justice for 13 months now in a very senior position as chief of staff to Attorney General Sessions.
So he does know him.
What I say is what I say.
Conservatism is a racket.
It's a racket, everybody. Hi, hope you had a decent Veterans Day. If you are a veteran, from one veteran to another, thank you for serving, your country. If you're not a veteran, you're welcome. I can't believe the president did absolutely nothing for Veterans Day. It took my breath away. Yesterday at 10 o'clock in the morning, okay, we couldn't do the show yesterday because Comcast doesn't give veterans, internet on Veterans Day. Thanks, Comcast. Yeah, we were going to do a show, even though I'm a veteran. We weren't going to take, and Scotty is too, he's a vet. We were going to work. Of course we were going to work. That's the whole point of, serving. So, but we couldn't because we just didn't have any of the internets working. And we have 5 different networks here. So please do support the show. None of them worked. I would like to make the change to fiber optic, but it's so much more expensive. We already started the project. I mean, we ran the lines. The lines are here, but we can't afford the service. So buy a stinking fierce Randi Rhodes hat. I mean, this should be the answer to the stupid red hat is my beautiful black hat. And buy a T-shirt. Thank you. Just go to randirhodes.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you will see a circle. It says merch. Click on that. It'll take you to the store. All right. This is where we left off with Whitaker, okay? And this is where we're going to pick up. There's so much going on today. It's unbelievable. 44 people have perished in these California wildfires, and you have a president who's tweeting out that it's your own damn fault. I in my whole life, I've never seen anybody so sociopathic hold this much power in this country or well, we have seen it in other countries, but never here. Never here. We got very lucky. We got very lucky when we needed somebody like an FDR versus somebody like, a Trump, a Hitler, a Mussolini, a Stalin, a Franco. We got lucky. Our luck is running out, okay? It truly is. So I got to say, this California thing is it's horrific. The more you read the personal stories of people, the more hellish it actually, and it has absolutely nothing to do with forest management. In fact, I think I've been tweeting my brains out because I'm just so sick of these lunatic. I mean, there are guys from InfoWars that work there, that actually work there, that should know better, and I believe they do. I really do, love. I really do. I think you know better. Either that or the best part of you is still running down your dad's leg. I don't know what to say to you anymore. I'm going to have to start charging you rent on my Twitter page. But it's an amazing thing. Obviously, these wildfires are caused by drought. Drought equals climate change. And we have a president who denies that this is occurring and blames the people of California for the management of federal forest lands that are under his purview. 57% of all the forests in California are federally owned, and the other 2/3 are privately owned. The nerve of this man to just tweet any stupid bullshit that comes into it when people are literally fleeing for their lives, dying, having their trucks melt melt in the middle of the street. People died in their cars. People were jammed in traffic and died in their cars. This is a sick presidency, I have to say. Just right there, that alone should have been enough. Should be enough. But oh no, there's more. CNN is suing the president and Sarah Sanders and other people in the administration for violating Jim Acosta's First and Fifth Amendment rights. No due process. We'll go through that. I'll show you what the law requires if you are going to have your press pass revoked. There is a process for doing that. And of course, that didn't happen. We've got these congratulations to Arizona and Kristen Sinema. She's your new Senator Sinema, everybody. That's a beautiful thing. 6 days. Arizona refused to pile onto this fraud GOP strategy, and that is what it is. It's a strategy because this Brenda Snipes woman, who is the election supervisor in Broward County, was appointed to that position by Jeb Bush. And then after that, yes, she was elected. That's the honest truth about her. She has been sued more times than I could tell you. Tim Canova, who ran as an independent, requested a review of his ballots after he lost to Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And Miss Snipes, in violation of a court order, destroyed all those ballots. We have been asking for her to be removed forever. Rick Scott has been the governor for 8 years. And for 8 years, he liked her. He loved her. He thought she was exactly what you need in a Democratic county. Somebody that was inept or somebody that made mistakes. And by the way, I have to tell you, in very Republican Bay County, where they have a Republican supervisor of elections, they allowed at least 150 people that we know of to vote by email, which is completely illegal in this state, and I believe in every state. But I'm sure about our law. I'm in Florida. Bay County voted by email? That is a total violation of law. You don't hear anybody from Gateway Pundit or InfoWars or any of these right-wing, pieces of swill talking about that. That is so we have that. We have cover-ups. We have today, I suspect, I don't know. I think you might see indictments from Mueller come down today. I'm not sure because nobody can be sure because Mueller doesn't leak. But it's being talked about among journalists that Robert Mueller has dozens of sealed indictments. The quiet period is over. And as early as today, we could see indictments. Now, yesterday, I went home, okay? I stayed here. I waited to make sure that there was no way we could do the show, and then I left. I tweeted you guys, and then I left, and I went back to my house. And I started watching some of this lunatic right-wing fringy stuff because somebody's got to do it because these people are doing really ugly things. And I watched Jerome Corsi, and Jerome Corsi was telling his audience, and then he began reading from the Bible. He was telling his audience that he fully believes he's going to be indicted and that he's going to go to jail. And then he started reading from the Bible and started telling his audience he'll go crazy. And that ship sailed. Right? I mean, this is a guy who is a conspiracy theorist. He's a swift boater. He attacks veterans. He's never served. But Jerome Corsi has attacked John McCain. He's attacked John Kerry. He's a real piece of dung, okay? And it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. 72 years old. He should go to jail. He really should. He should go to freaking jail and go crazy. He is crazy. They're all crazy. People are lunatic fringe. They are cult members. They are lying sacks who hate their country and really want to see fascism take hold, not just here, but in Poland, in Hungary, in Austria, they're in Sweden. They have these fascist Hitlerian movements all over the world now, led by Steve freaking Bannon. Anyway, so I watched Jerome Corsi freak out, and then all of a sudden, he's like, he's telling people, I'm watching him on YouTube, and he's telling people that he's been banned from YouTube while I'm watching him on YouTube, and that they need to give him money in Super Chat. And he's saying he can't see the super chat. He doesn't know if you're giving, so please make sure you're giving, because he's been banned. I'm watching it, and I see people, one person I saw give $29. It was a weird amount. But anyway, I got to tell you, this attack on veterans was so disgusting, and it always comes from them. They hate us. They literally hate us. The president didn't go to a cemetery, and he said because his helicopter couldn't fly. You know how far away he was from the cemetery? 50 miles. You know that the Joint Chiefs, General Dunford, got in his car and drove to the cemetery and was there with all the world leaders. But our president wouldn't stand under an umbrella, or wouldn't, he said, the helicopter was grounded. Well, it was 50 miles away. You could have gone by car. You could have hitched a ride with Dunford. I mean, it was just the sickest, lamest excuse. It's like the dog ate my homework thing. And people who are, Republican, who swear they love the veterans, they excuse it because the cult leader did it. They can find a million excuses for I just can't even imagine if Barack Obama refused to do anything on Veterans Day. And at 10 o'clock in the morning yesterday, Trump's schedule changed. Well, it didn't really change. They put it out. And I tell you, this man does nothing all day. He really, now that all his 30, Florida and Arizona and all these places he lost, now all these rallies are done. Montana lost. Right? Now, all the 30 rallies this man did, that was all that was on his schedule. I kept trying to tell you yesterday, 10 o'clock, 10:03 in the morning, the schedule comes out. He has nothing on his schedule at all. Nothing. He did nothing all freaking day on Veterans Day. How in the hell do you expect? And now I'm reading deeper about Whitaker. Let me tell you something. This new guy, Matthew Whitaker, scammed veterans out of their life savings. This is so disgusting, okay? I told you that he was on the board of directors of World Patent Marketing, okay? A company based out of here. Of course, this is Scam Central, out of Florida. And this guy enticed and sought out and marketed to veterans, a lot of them disabled veterans, for them to give their last pennies to him, and he would patent their invention. Like he was showing you that hot tub that I showed you, that little video of him pitching this hot tub. It was a disabled hot tub, right? It was a hot tub with a chair in it. And he was saying it was going to change everything for disabled people, this hot tub was. Well, it turns out that the reason why he was doing that disabled hot tub, for people who can't climb over the hot tub wall, he actually targeted, they promoted themselves to military disabled veterans. They said that they were a champion of those who served in the military. Quote, this was from their marketing materials. Not only do we honor the veterans and soldiers of our armed forces, but we are also celebrating what they are protecting, the American dream. That was their statement to the veterans of the United States in 2014. And it highlighted, this marketing piece highlighted Whitaker's role at the firm. Said that he was a former U.S. attorney in Iowa. And guess who else was on the board of directors? Our congressman. And this is a shame because he's a disabled veteran. He's a Republican congressman from Florida, just got reelected, Brian Mast, up here in Palm Beach, northern Palm Beach. He was also on the board. And Whitaker was, people were being scammed so hard. Here's the article from Forbes that says that after these veterans would write letters saying, I just paid you my life savings, blah, 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 and nothing's happening, and year after year after year, Whitaker would personally threaten them. He would send them personal emails, intimidating emails. Here's one of them that Forbes was able to get. August 25th, 2015. A customer who had contacted World Patent Marketing with his grievances and filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. The Federal Trade Commission docket, reviewed by Miami New Times here in Miami, has an email exchange. Also, page 362 of 400 pages, right? And it explains what happened. When Whitaker was told about the customer's charge of being cheated out of his life savings, rather than expressing concern, this is just like, Trump with the fires. This is just like Trump with Puerto Rico. This is just like Trump with every major disaster, okay? Instead of expressing concern, the sociopath Whitaker wrote to say, I am a, quote, former United States attorney for the Southern District of Iowa. Your emails and message from today seem to be an apparent attempt at possible blackmail or extortion. You also mentioned filing a complaint with the Better Business Bureau and to smear World Patent Marketing's reputation online. I am assuming you know that there could be serious civil and criminal consequences for you if that is, in fact, what you and your, quote, group is doing. Understand, we take threats like this quite seriously. Please conduct yourself accordingly. But Whitaker had picked the wrong guy. This guy wrote back. His name is A. Rudsky, okay? He wrote back, do not email me with your scare tactics. I am an attorney too. Stop with your bullshit emails. You are a party to a scam. You will be exposed, and I hope I make myself clear, Mr. Whitaker. Well, that's not the only threat they made. The complaint that was filed, the civil complaint that was filed with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, in 2017, alleged that Whitaker's company cheated 1,504 would-be investors of more than $25 million and cited yet another way that World Patent Marketing attempted to frighten its customers. It sent its customers emails describing the company's security team. Quote, they are all ex-Israeli special ops and trained in Krav Maga, one of the most deadly of the martial arts. The World Patent Marketing Security Team are the kind of guys who are trained to knock out first and ask questions later. They were sending these things to disabled veterans. What in the F? How in the world does anybody believe that the cult leader and his ilk support the troops or care about veterans or veterans' issues? It's depressing reading this complaint. It's very depressing. But I must tell you, there is now a criminal investigation. And guess who's conducting the criminal investigation? Because the civil case has been settled for $26 million. But now there's a criminal investigation. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. And the Wall Street Journal reports that the FBI is conducting the criminal investigation and that the investigation at World Patent Marketing is during the period of time in which Whitaker worked there. How could this man be put in charge of the Justice Department? Constitutional concerns and all aside. It's crazy, right?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
What seems to me the facts for recusal are very strong here. This is someone who's made repeated and prejudicial comments against the investigation. It's someone who has made false statements about it, claiming that the Russians really had no impact on our election. It's someone who has a relationship with one of the important witnesses in the investigation. And I want to say this. If Mr. Whitaker does not recuse himself...
He's not legally required to, even if the ethics office says he should, correct?
I don't know whether he's legally required to. But here's the thing. We have every right to expect all of the employees of the Justice Department to follow the ethics rules, and that means especially the Attorney General. But, I want to make this very clear. If he doesn't recuse himself, if he has any involvement whatsoever in this Russia probe. We are going to find out whether he made commitments to the president about the probe, whether he is serving as a back channel to the president or his lawyers about the probe, whether he's doing anything to interfere with the probe. Mr. Whitaker needs to understand that he will be called to answer, and any role that he plays will be exposed to the public. We don't want there to be any ambiguity about that.
Are you convinced that he's constitutionally eligible to hold the position?
I'm not convinced at all. There are serious constitutional arguments that as a principal officer, he cannot be appointed to this position. I think that's certainly the right policy answer, also maybe the answer demanded by the Constitution.
I think it is, but all constitutional issues aside, this man is under FBI investigation. That stupid company that he ran that built, disabled veterans to the tune of $26 million. This is the Trump University fraud case. And by the way, it was here in Florida, and Pam Bondi was the Attorney General. Isn't that something? So that's why it was a civil case. And he's threatening people with Israeli special ops to come visit their house. Let me read this to you. This is just so vile, okay? This is in The Guardian today. It says, Donald Trump's new acting attorney general. And I don't know if Adam Schiff, I don't know if Jerry Nadler, who sits on judiciary, or will sit on judiciary in January, I don't know if we're going to make it through this lame duck. This lame duck, they may shut down the government because Trump wants his stupid freaking wall. Isn't it interesting? We don't hear anything about the caravan, and yet 5,600 of our veterans, 5,600 of our troops, our active duty, our reserve and guard, they're down at the border right now in tents, 20 people to a tent, no mess hall, no air conditioning, in the middle of the freaking desert for show. For show. And they won't be home for Thanksgiving because this president wants to show. He uses the military. They all do. They prey on us. It's disgusting. So I get so livid when they do this. I get so angry. Here's the story. Donald Trump's new acting attorney general, Matthew Whitaker, was involved in a company that scammed U.S. military veterans out of their life savings, according to court filings and interviews. Whitaker, a former U.S. attorney in Iowa, was paid to work as an advisory board member for World Patent Marketing, a Florida-based company accused by the U.S. government of tricking aspiring inventors out of millions of dollars. Earlier this year, it was ordered to pay authorities $26 million. Several veterans, two of them with disabilities, said they lost tens of thousands of dollars in the WPM scam, having been enticed into paying for patenting and licensing services by the impressive credentials of Whitaker and his fellow advisors. World Patent Marketing has devastated me emotionally, mentally, and financially, Melvin Kiana of Hawaii told a federal court last year, adding that he trusted the firm with his life savings because, quote, it had respected people on the board of directors. The 60-year-old said he was a disabled veteran, U.S. Army paratrooper, and paid the company in 2015 and 16 to patent and promote his ideas for fishing equipment. Quote, I received nothing for the $14,085 I paid to the company other than bad quality drawing and a logo that my grandson could have made. Kiana and other WPM customers described their experiences in declarations to court written under penalty of perjury as part of a civil lawsuit brought by the Federal Trade Commission against WPM and its chief executive, Scott Cooper. Emails filed as evidence to the case show desperate customers begging Cooper and his team for their money back. Quote, here's an email they sent. You have caused me tremendous grief. I can't sleep. My stress level is at an all-time high, and the last of my savings has been stolen with nothing to show for it. One unemployed widow who lost $8,000 wrote to Cooper in December 2016. I mean, this is not years old, okay? This just happened. Another investor who paid $12,000 said he was left with, quote, a stress-related condition that's eating away at my hair. In particular, World Patent Marketing promoted itself as a champion of those who served in the military. Quote, Not only do we honor the veterans and soldiers of our armed forces, but we are also celebrating what they are protecting, the American dream. It said in a statement timed for Veterans Day 2014, which highlighted Whitaker's role at the firm. World Patent Marketing claimed to have made an unspecified donation to the Wounded Warrior Project nonprofit, which did not respond to an email seeking confirmation of those payments. Whitaker publicly vouched for WPM, claiming in a December 24 statement it went, quote, beyond making statements about doing business ethically and translated those words into action. I would only align myself with a first-class organization, Whitaker wrote. But customers reported to authorities that they had been treated unethically by a company that, beneath its glossy marketing pamphlets, was a shabby operation. Dennis Artman, a 24-year veteran of the Army and Air Force Reserves from Washington State, took $25,000 from his retirement savings account in 2015 to pay WPM to patent and promote a wearable device his then wife had created to jolt sleepy drivers awake and guide them to accommodation. He said, I know it's a lot of money, but I believe in it and I believe in you, his ex-wife Gwendolyn Artman, 58, said in an interview. Gwendolyn Artman said she received approximately 25 emails from WPM that touted the backgrounds of Whitaker and other board members. In late 2015, Artman said World Patent Marketing stopped returning her calls and emails. Only after she complained to the office of Florida's Attorney General, that would be Pam Bondi, did Cooper call. She must have called him, asking her to withdraw the complaint and promising to make amends. Again, nothing materialized. The Artmans divorced this year after more than 10 years of marriage. Gwendolyn, who runs a not-for-profit treatment center for people suffering from opioid addiction, said the World Patent Marketing saga was partly to blame for her divorce. Quote, I think he lost faith in me. It was a lot of money, and he blamed me for losing it. A Justice Department spokeswoman, Carrie Kupek, said in an email, quote, Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker has said he was not aware of any fraudulent activities. Any stories suggesting otherwise are false. Attorneys for Cooper did not respond to emails seeking comment. Cooper denied wrongdoing in the FTC case. He was ultimately ordered to pay $1 million and surrender any proceeds from selling his $3.5 million Miami mansion in return for the rest of the $26 million judgment being suspended. Some veterans who gave money to WPM said they were impressed by the inclusion on the advisory board of Congressman Brian Mast, a Florida Republican who lost both his legs in September 2010 while serving with the Army in Afghanistan. One of these veterans, identified in court filings and company materials as John D., complained to Cooper that WPM had deserted him after using his status as a veteran to promote his idea for a new type of umbrella. Quote, I'm sure he'll be your best supporter, John D. wrote of Mast in a September 2016 email. But what about my product? Brian Mast was reelected this week and said in a declaration to court that Cooper appointed him to the advisory board without his consent after the two met twice in February of 2016 at an event at then WPM's offices in Miami. They made a campaign donation to Brian Mast, $5,400, and last year, Brian Mast returned it. Another WPM client, Ryan Masti, who served in the Navy and suffers from dyslexia and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, said a WPM representative boasted of the company's connections to Whitaker and Mast in a promotional telephone call that persuaded him to hand over his money. Bastid told the court he had lost more than $75,000 after paying WPM to register, develop, and promote his idea for Socially Accepted, a social network aimed at people with disabilities. He said in return he received only a press release, a logo, and a shoddy website template. Wow. Right. Not even a t-shirt. I spent the money on a dream to help people, Bastid said in an interview on Friday, and I lost everything. Bastid, a 26-year-old farmer from upstate New York, borrowed $50,000 from his retirement account, took out a commercial loan for $20,000, and used another $7,000 he inherited from his late grandfather, a veteran of the Second World War. A WPM executive told him, quote, "You could make $1 million in sales at a minimum." Having voted for Trump enthusiastically in 2016, Bastid said on Friday he would soon be changing his party affiliation to Democratic following the president's elevation of Whitaker. "It's totally ridiculous," said Bastid. "It makes the whole Republican Party look so bad. How could a president appoint someone like this? And then not to have a problem about it when it comes out? He should be taking care of the victims." Well, Mr. Bastid, that will never happen. That will never happen. The president has blamed Puerto Rico for its own hurricane demise. It has blamed Californians for their own hellish fires. It has blamed you for your own gullibility. It has blamed the gullibility of people who believed that Donald Trump was really running a university and built them out of $36,000 to $40,000 apiece. Oh, no. Oh, no. They will never protect anybody from victimization. Never. And all this talk about relaxing regulations is going to allow for more fraud, for less protection. It's a sick freaking society we have here. And now there's a criminal investigation that's being conducted by the FBI. And this man, Whitaker, is going to be in charge of the Justice Department?
Connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The president tweeted the following yesterday: "There's no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California, except that forest management is so poor. Billions of dollars are given each year with so many lives lost, all because of gross mismanagement of the forests. Remedy now or no more Fed payments." Is that what this fire is about? Is it mismanagement of the forests in California?
No, it's not. I mean, there are a lot of root causes about why the fire season has become so much worse over the years. But you know, for the president at a time when people are facing utter disaster, to be making a statement like this, making a threat like this, this just goes to show how little he understands the job he has. That he would be punitive at a time like this rather than coming to the defense of people facing disaster of their lives. He's out there making these broad and false statements and threatening to remove funding from a state that's devastated right now.
Do you think it's a political thing because California's so blue?
I do. This is a president who, more than any other, is punitive. And I think we saw that in the tax cut by taking away state and local tax deductions. That was aimed at the blue states. Yep. Basically, he is only the president, I think, in his view, of those who voted for him. The rest he could care less.
It's so true. I mean, you know, the entire Northeast went blue. The entire Northeast. Maine is now firmly in Democratic hands. New York's state legislature, I told you the New York Senate was a Republican thing. For a really long time, nobody really thought about New York like that, but not anymore. You have Arizona, obviously, you know, a tough election, but you still have your governor, Ducey, who's probably going to appoint Martha McSally. You know, they'll split it. So that, you know, there's that. And then you have California, you know, that's still counting their votes. We don't even know. We could pick up 40 seats. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And in California, you have 44 people died, 44 people dead. And the president is tweeting out, it's your fault. Also, he's saying in this new budget package, okay, today Congress goes back into session. and they'll stay in session. This is the lame duck session. I told you we'd have a contested election. Was I right? Was I right? Hey, programmers who fill your airwaves with all kinds of disparate shit, why don't you try putting somebody who can actually see what the lay of the land is and inform your listeners that this is what's about to happen? I told you we'd have a contested election, and it is contested everywhere. Georgia just extended the certification date. The judge in Georgia said, no, you will count those provisional ballots, because there were an abnormal amount of people denied actual ballots and forced to vote provisionally. 27,000 of them in Georgia. And check this out. Look, just check out the number. This is just wow. This is a big wow, everybody. You know, they don't have paper ballots in Georgia, right? Right? Yeah. So they can't have a recount. Damn it. So what they do is they say in their law that if nobody gets 50% plus one, then there's a runoff. Guess how many votes Stacey Abrams is away from a runoff election? 24,000. Guess how many people were forced to vote provisional? 27,000. Coincidence? I think not. So, yes, the contested election. Now we go into the lame duck session, and this is going to be a doozy too, because you have all the bitter enders, you have all the people who need to do whatever it is that they wanted to do to prove to the lobby shops that they are worthy in this lame duck session, and that includes shutting down the government over the stupid wall. If that they've passed like I think there's 12 appropriations bills, and 7 of them haven't been passed. The government is not funded. See, and now they're going to scramble to do that. God help us if they scramble to take another vote with this lame duck Congress to repeal Obamacare. You see what I mean? They got 4 freaking weeks left before our chosen people take the oath. This is a scary and sick time. I don't know what they're going to do. But I will tell you, California, listen, I don't know how people vote for Republicans in California when they put out tweets blaming you for a situation that he obviously made worse. Gutting the EPA, putting Scott Pruitt at the EPA, deregulating everything, doing absolutely nothing on forest management, threatening to take away disaster funding for you in the middle of a disaster. It isn't even over. And then he does the same thing with Puerto Rico. And that's another thing that has to go into these appropriations bills is money for Puerto Rico. He lied. I'm shocked. He said that Puerto Rico, check this out, was using the disaster relief money to pay down their debt. So he's saying that Puerto Rico is using the disaster relief money that comes from the federal government to pay the federal government. That's just stupid. They only got their electricity back in August. This is just stupid. And he's threatening to withhold any disaster funding for them. I mean, it's so sick. It's so crazy. I want you to hear what's going on there.
When I read the quote where your husband, it was in one of the papers over the weekend, said if you're going to die, die fighting. You were with your patients and you didn't want to leave the hospital. You tell me what he meant by that.
Well, I called him because my car was completely surrounded by flames and I couldn't see out the window and I started to fill up with smoke, and I called him and I said, Nick, I'm gonna die and I'm not gonna make it out of here. There's just flames everywhere and I don't know what to do. And he said, don't die, run. If you're gonna die fighting. You have to run. And so I jumped out of my car in the middle of these flames and ran, and I ran up to my friend in front of me. Her name is Karen Davis, and her truck was melting into the ground, into the pavement, and her windows, when I went to go knock on the window, it was completely black, and filled with smoke inside her cab. So I either thought I was watching her die in there, or she got to safety, and I didn't know which one. And I couldn't open up her door. The doorknob was melted. And so I had to leave her, and I thought that was the last time I was going to see her. And I went to the next vehicle in front of her because it was so hot and I was running out of air. I thought maybe I could jump into this car and she'll save me. And it was Dr. McClarty's car. And I got into her car and I burned a hole in her seat from my pants. And we just sat there and prayed. And we held hands. And we prayed to God that we were both going to survive this. And we just thought, how can this happen? And I came back into my mind because her car started to fill up with smoke again. That my husband told me, run, don't stay there, run. Just get out of the car and run. And so I told Dr. McClarty, I have to go, I have to run. And so I got out of her car and I ran, and there was no oxygen in the air. The fire was just consuming it, and I was just gasping. And I put my hand out and I closed my eyes because the ash was so hot and there was just embers flying in my eyes. It was burning me. I held my hand out and I ended up touching the back of a fire truck. And I got over to the side of the fire truck, knocked on the doors. The stickers were melting off this truck. And 2 firemen came out and picked me up and put me into their fire engine and put a fire blanket on the windows. And it was just amazing. I thought, okay, I'm safe. I can live in here, right? Because this is what they go through. This is what they do. And then they called for air support, and they said, that's impossible. We can't get air support. And he said, we need air support. We're not going to make it. And I just thought, what do you mean? What do you mean we're not going to make it? This isn't happening. I can't leave now. They won't let me leave this fire engine. My husband told me to run. I was going to run. I can't leave. And so I ended up looking out of the fire blankets, and there was a dozer, and this dozer just came out of nowhere and cleared a path, and he saved all of us. He saved everybody's lives. Those dozer operators are incredible, and they deserve to be the heroes in this story because they just cleared a path and they made way for us. And we were able to get back to the hospital and help patients that started showing up at the hospital.
And she went back to the hospital. She's a nurse. She went back there. And then the hospital burnt down. Seriously, the hospital burnt down. And the President of the United States is sending out mean tweets? Really?
President Trump, when he was in France, had something to say about the wildfires devastating California this weekend. He wrote, there is no reason for these massive, deadly, and costly forest fires in California except that forest management is so poor. He accuses officials of mismanaging the forests and adds, quote, remedy now or no more Fed payments. I want to get Tom Sater in here from the CNN Severe Weather Center. And Tom, some West Coast firefighters had an answer for the president. I want to read part of it to you. The head of the Pasadena Fire Association writing, Mr. President, with all due respect, you are wrong. The fires in SoCal are urban interface fires and have nothing to do with forest management. Come to SoCal and learn the facts and help the victims.
Really?
Tom, a strong statement there from the California firefighters. Fact check President Trump's tweet for us.
Okay. You know, Anna, I enjoy being in the weather department because it's neutral, you know, with the exception of climate change issues. But, you know, staying out of the political arena, this is wrong on so many levels. They're right. This has nothing to do with forest management. I mean, look, we're not looking at dense forest here, especially down in Malibu. But forest management has nothing to do with mountain winds coming down the passes at 70 miles per hour or humidity levels in 1 hour dropping Thursday from 35% down into single digits, drier than most deserts. But again, if you think about it, to say remedy now or we'll take your funds, he's already taken some of their funds. But I read a tweet that followed that one that makes good sense. It said, it's like taking funds from the National Hurricane Center until you stop all these hurricanes. I mean, it's the same notion. But more importantly, people died in their homes. They found bodies outside the homes, in their vehicles, trying to flee, outside their vehicles, just trying to run away. we've got a problem here because even though the winds may lighten tomorrow for the northern area and the Camp Fire, they're going to remain strong to the south. And I think by Tuesday, we may see the winds pick up just like we did on Thursday, where the fires to the north and the Camp Fire were burning 8 football fields every minute. High pressure Santa Ana winds keeping the rain out of the area. We should have 5 to 6 inches of rain since the beginning of October. We haven't had a drop.
Not a drop. It's a drought, and it's the humidity is so low. The winds are so high. This is, I mean, the ignorance of this man and the lack of empathy. He is such a sociopath, and everyone around. I mean, you know, today he's gonna. Today he fired what's her face, Kirstjen Nielsen from the Department of Homeland Security because she didn't separate enough families for him, for his taste. And John Kelly is probably going to go because, you know, the reason why Kirsten was there is because Kelly liked her. I mean, they worked together at DHS when Kelly was the head of DHS. And then when he left to go be the White House chief of staff, she stepped up and she took his job. And so they're probably both going, who the hell cares? He can't find anybody that's not a sociopath who will work with him. I told you when we first launched this show back because I knew he was going to win. I knew. I'm always right. It's sick because I can actually read and analyze. And I can see the writing on the wall. But I told you, going to work for him was making a deal with the devil. And that the devil takes the payments on the installment plan. And you will never get out from under working for Donald Trump. And then Rick Wilson wrote the book that actually made sense of what I was trying to tell you in the most easy to understand sentence. Everything Donald Trump touches dies. And I'm just wondering if this country can survive him. I want to believe that this democracy is strong enough, that it's feisty enough, and that it's educated enough.
But what Bill Nelson needs to do now is what he would be asking me to do if I had lost the election, is say, look, the election happened, let's go forward. But he's not. He's just a pure sore loser trying to steal an election.
I'm sure it has to be really frustrating when you've worked so hard, tirelessly, then you were working on helping those folks that were displaced because of the hurricane. You did a great job with that from what we've heard from everyone down in Florida. I know it has to be frustrating when you look at the numbers, you win, you had your beautiful speech with your family there and your daughters next to you, and then this news comes in. But there are a lot of people that say around the country, let's just count the votes just so that we can redo it and let's see what the problem is. Let's recount the votes. We want to make sure we do this right. Every voice needs to be heard. Are you questioning what's going on in these counties? Are you thinking there's something nefarious going on?
Well, we know, first off, we won by 57,000 votes that night. So we know that since then, just in these 2 counties, 93,000 new votes showed up. How'd that happen? Oh, my God. We know that Brenda Snipes said that ballots that she acknowledged, knows that they were illegal, she mixed them in with legal ballots. We know that happened. Okay, she said she said they did that. Yeah. We know that they tried to continue to count ballots after the deadline. We know that. So I want all the votes. I want to make sure there's a free and fair election. Right. But there's laws. Comply with the laws. It's supposed to prevent fraud.
Oh, my God. So now we have Rick Scott deliberately trying to undermine people's faith in the election, even when everybody knows there is no fraud. So it's gotten to the point where in order to win an election, you have to destroy democracy. Hey, that's a good plan. Let's continue down that road. Let's see what happens. What could go wrong, everybody? They keep on lying about Brenda Snipes, the Broward County supervisor of elections, saying that she mixed in illegal votes with legal votes. Finally, somebody decided in the media, hey, why don't we book Brenda Snipes and why don't we ask her about these, 22 ballots, even though I've shown you that there are 150 illegal ballots in Florida being counted, but those are not in Broward, Palm Beach, or Miami-Dade County. Those illegal ballots are where the Fox News model is congratulating Rick Scott for helping all those people, and he has a beautiful family, therefore he should win. This is her, analytical process. But those 150 ballots that are illegal in Florida came by email. In Bay County, Mark Anderson is the Bay County election supervisor. And in violation of Florida law, and I don't think anybody else in this country allows this, but I'm sure about Florida, you cannot vote by email. And he let these people vote by email. Now, last night, Brenda Snipes was on television, and she was asked by Chris Cuomo about these 22 ballots, these illegal ballots. And, she's so pissed, and I don't blame her. This is crazy. I mean, there is no fraud. Everyone knows there's no fraud. The judges that have been, included in all these, but I got really freaky news for you after I show you that there are no illegal ballots in Broward County. In Bay County, there are 150 illegals cast by people by email, which is illegal, at least in this state. But they asked her last night, what is with these 22 ballots? What is with these? And she will tell you they have never been counted. They were not counted, and they're not counted to date, although she believes that these provisional ballots, once there's a chance to have people verify their signature, which the court has ordered people get a chance to do, they will be proven to be legitimate voters in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale. That is her answer.
The central criticism comes to whether or not all the ballots that are supposed to be counted are, and whether or not ballots that should not be counted are being counted. Your critics point to 22 rejected provisional ballots that were put in with a batch of 200 valid ones. And they say, you see, this is what happened back in 2016. They make mistakes in there, and it can change an election.
As I said before, an election is a huge operation. There are many moving parts, but we pay attention to each one of them. There are folks who have specialties in all kinds of functions of the election process. And there were 25 ballots in question, not 21. And those 25 ballots had not been counted as of today. But now those ballots, as I understand it, came from valid Broward voters. And I believe every voter should be given a fair opportunity to have their ballot cast. But we don't want that ballot to be cast illegally. If the ballot doesn't meet the standard, that's one thing. But if, if the ballots have been determined to come from actual registered voters who met all the criteria of being a registered voter and operated as a registered voter, those votes should be counted. But that's not just my decision. Decisions like that are taken before the canvassing board, and we sit as a team. There are 3 of us, 2 county judges and myself, supervisor of elections. So if a ballot is in question, before that ballot is open, it comes to the canvassing board so that the canvassing board can review the circumstances. And the canvassing board makes a determination as to whether those ballots should be counted.
Is it not the case that whether the number is 22 or 25, whatever the number is, that those rejected provisional ballots that were put with 200 valid ones, is it not the case that those 22 or 25 ballots were then removed again because they were not supposed to be counted with the other ones?
They were never counted. Those ballots had been separated. They've been isolated. They have not been counted to date.
Thank you. They just lie. It's just so incredible. And I got news for you. In Palm Beach County, where I voted, they can't count my ballot either. They can't count ballots because yesterday we found out from the supervisor of elections in Palm Beach County, Susan Booker, that the machines overheated. And they have to call for mechanics, not IT people. Oh, no, not IT people. No, this is Palm Beach County. They need to call in mechanics to fix the machines because they overheated. What are they, coal-fired voting machines? Are they steam-powered here in Palm Beach County? And the difference between these two, between Bill Nelson, the Democrat, and Rick Scott, the governor, who wants to be the senator, is 0.2%, which means they're going to have to do a hand recount after the machine recount. And they can only count one race at a time in these old, vile, antiquated machines, because this is how Rick Scott wanted it as governor of this state for 8 years. Everybody told him about our machines. Everybody told him. In Florida, we lost a whole day of counting because the voting machines freaking overheated. The Miami Herald reported this morning that the elections department has flown in mechanics. Mechanics. What are we going to have a foundry forge some parts for our voting machines now? Oh my God. And Rick Scott is declaring victory. He literally went to the Senate. He went up to Capitol Hill and he stood there with Mitch McConnell today. This is really sick. And they included him in Mitch McConnell's Senate Dream Team.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I've been through a few of these over the years. It's a lot better to have a big freshman class than not. And so we're here this morning to welcome our 6 new Republican senators that allowed us to continue our majority. And we'll be heading across the way here shortly to elect the leadership team for the next 2 years.
Governor Scott, do you still contend that there's fraud going on in Florida with this recount?
All right, everyone, thank you very much. That's it.
Thanks, folks.
This is it. Thank you.
Mr. Scott, will you accept?
All right, thank you guys.
TV, go.
Mr. Scott, go.
TV folks, this is it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's the really freaky part. Here's something you don't know, you've probably not heard, but it's true and it's scary and it's horrible. Most people are thinking that the courts will weigh in on this, and they have along the way. For instance, they've extended the count time for Broward and Palm Beach till Friday because the machines overheated in Palm Beach, right? Even though they're celebrating. That was Rick Scott standing there, next to Mitch McConnell as an elected senator, and he's not been certified as the winner because they can't finish the count because the machines are overheating over here, over there. You got 150 ballots that was sent illegally by email over there. You got provisional ballots that still need to be counted, overseas ballots that still need to be counted, and military ballots that still need to be counted, and mail-in ballots that still need to be counted by hand. And then there's going to be a hand recount, okay? Check that out. Now, all that has to happen by November 20th. Today is what, the 14th? Is today the 14th? Yes. Okay, in 6 days, trust me, in Florida, check the shape of the state, everybody. And look how limp that is. You see how it just dangles there? It's a dangler. That is not going to happen. So the courts will not be the arbiter of who wins because all the court can do is say, keep counting, we'll extend, they'll issue injunctions, they'll enjoin people from calling the election, they'll do all these things. But if the count isn't completed by the 20th, this makes me sick to say, but it looks like the Senate will pick its own member. No, I'm not kidding. The Senate would get the last word on a disputed Senate race. What? Here's how it could happen. Even if Senator Bill Nelson wins the election, he may not win the election. And that is because the Constitution says that the ultimate arbiter of who gets a Senate seat is the Senate itself, not the election officials, not the courts. And you know, Mitch McConnell is such a dirty bird. He is such a dirty dog. He has had absolutely no problem throwing away the filibuster rule for Supreme Court justices, a simple majority for the Supreme Court. This used to be the most deliberative body in the history of deliberative bodies, the Senate, the U.S. Senate. And now, oh no, Mitch McConnell suspends all these rules, okay? But here's what it says in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 5. It's very clear. It's like as clear as a cloudless day in Florida, okay? It says, quote, each house shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members. Now, yeah, that would seem extremely, excruciatingly undemocratic. And it has come up before. But it's only come up when you had decent people occupying those Senate seats, which we don't have anymore. Okay, in New Hampshire, in 1974, there was a race, and it was literally 355 votes separating the Democrat and the Republican candidate. The Democrat was John Durkin, and the Republican opponent was Lewis Wyman. Doesn't matter if you remember this or not. It just matters that you know this happened before. 355 votes. So they did a recount, right? And it reversed the outcome. And the outcome found that Mr. Wyman, the Republican, won by 2 votes. The Democrat was the winner. They did a recount, and the Republican won by 2 votes in New Hampshire. So the Democrat asked the Senate to step in and resolve the race. The Democrats in 1974, go look it up, you freaks, had a solid Democratic majority. The Senate still was deadlocked about what to do because they didn't want to upend the voice of the people. They didn't want to upend democracy. And they were still unable to seat Mr. Durkin. So the Senate decided, let's declare the seat vacant so New Hampshire can have a special election. And that is what happened. And New Hampshire got a special election and re-voted, and the Democrat, Mr. Durkin, won the race outright. So turning to the Senate to be the final arbiter has happened before. It also happened in 2008. You might remember Al Franken and Norm Coleman, that Senate race in Minnesota. It was about 300 votes separating the two of them. But Mr. Coleman, as much as I disagree with his policy positions, had some sense of decency at long last and conceded rather than having the Senate put in this undemocratic position of choosing for Minnesota. So Coleman conceded, and Al Franken was finally seated. But it was like many months of back and forth and back and forth. Well, ask yourself this one. Do you think in this day and age, do you think now that you know how disgustingly partisan and how disgustingly ruthless the Senate has become, that Mitch McConnell would refuse to seat the Republican, or would refuse, what if they refuse to seat Bill Nelson? Do you know what I'm saying? And it could actually come down to the Senate making the call and just swearing in Bill Nelson. And from what I saw this morning, that's what freaked me out. I was like, oh, well, I guess that's it. Because does it sound to you like with 0.2% of difference and a hand recount likely? Well, it's required by law now. First, they have to finish the machine recount. So far, it's 0.2%. That requires by law a hand recount.
Thanks, Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
There are monitors who have been monitoring what's happening in Broward County throughout this election and the days after. They've seen no evidence of fraud. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement has seen no evidence of fraud. There is absolutely nothing to these assertions other than the conspiracy theories that the president, particularly when it comes to elections, that the president likes to spin.
Oh my God, there is no fraud. I just hate to tell you, there just isn't. There are overheated machines, and we need spare parts. Oh my God. And then in Broward County, you had one of the largest turnouts in a midterm election, and you have military ballots, you have provisional ballots, and here's a little rule of thumb. 71% of provisional ballots historically have been fine. Okay, so a great majority, not a plurality, but a great majority of provisional ballots, when people are told that they need to verify their voter, ID, or they need to verify their address, or they need to verify their signature, or they need to if they are contacted until 71% of provisional ballots are not excluded. They are accepted. And the courts have ruled in Broward County that the provisional ballots, these people must be contacted and they must have the ability to verify who they are, that they forgot their ID, or that they, put the wrong birth date, or whatever it is. And 71% of those ballots are going to be fine. Now, I got to tell you, this isn't the only place that craziness is going on. You might know that Arizona took 6 days to count their votes. So why? Why is it that it takes 6 days to count votes? Because in Arizona, for instance, this is a good, and for our governor, Rick Scott, to sit there on Faux News and say, where are these ballots coming from? When everybody knows there's provisional ballots, everybody knows there's military ballots. This president doesn't give a rat's ass about counting the military ballots. This governor doesn't give a rat's, and we have one of the largest military populations in the country right here in Florida, and they don't want to count those. They don't want to count the provisionals. They don't want to count the mail-ins. They don't want to, give people a chance to verify their signature. I told you the story already. Scott went to vote, and 3 times they had to get his signature because they didn't like it. They didn't like the signature the first time. They said, oh, it doesn't match. Sign again. He signed again. No, we don't like it again. Sign again. 3rd time, what a charm. Oh, okay, that's you. I mean, this is craziness what goes on here. You have to fight for your right to vote in this place. You remember during the midterm, during the primary, I went to vote and I had been purged off the voter rolls. And it took me 3 hours in the supervisor's office to explain to them that I had voted in the past 2 elections. Because they'll tell you, we sent you a postcard and you didn't vote in the last 2. I go, oh, hell, I didn't. I vote for dog catcher. I vote for everything. I vote for school board, okay? I vote on my condo association. Don't tell me I didn't vote. So I made them go and run my voter records. Oh, yeah, you did. You voted. Oh, my God, we're wrong. All right, we're going to reinstate you. That was after 2 hours at the supervisor's office. So I said, well, let me vote, here. I'm at the supervisor's office. Oh, no, you can't vote at the supervisor's office on election day. You could vote at the supervisor's office early, but you can't vote at the supervisor's office on election day. Now you got to go all the way back to your precinct, which was 30 miles away from the supervisor's office. But I did it. And Scott had to sign his name 3 times, and he did it. And, Howard was an election observer, and he saw people, the way that we have to do it is you sit in the chair, then they verify your ID, then you go to the next chair, they verify that they sent you an email, they sent you a mail-in ballot. I happened to bring mine with me so that they could take it from me. And then you have to fill out a form saying you surrendered it and that you're going to vote in person. And that takes time. Okay. And then they tell you what precinct you're in. And then you wait on another line where they give you the ballot for your precinct. And then you go to the snack tray and you color in all the arrows. And then you go to a machine and you feed the paper into the machine for counting. Well, the counting machines only count the precinct that you're in. So let's say I'm in precinct 3000. I'm in 3805, okay? Let's say that's me. So I have to hand my ballot, not hand it, but I have to feed it myself with my 2 hands into the machine that counts the 3000s and not the 4,000s, and not the 2,000s, because I'm 3805. You see what I mean? Howard saw them using one machine for all the precincts, and those ballots were getting rejected because a precinct that's in the 2,000s, if you're voting in the 3,000s, the machine won't take it. And they were just saying, I'm sorry, but, you overvoted, or I'm sorry, you undervoted, or I'm sorry. And all those have to be hand counted, okay? All those have to be run through again. And in Palm Beach County, the machine's overheated because that happened so many freaking times here. Listen, now, here's another question for you, okay? Do you think the governor of this state, Rick Scott, who is claiming victory without the recount being completed and alleging fraud that no judge has said has occurred, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which is our FBI, says no fraud has occurred. Election monitors who are watching the recount say no fraud has occurred. And the lawyers who are sitting there watching for both sides say no fraud has occurred. Okay? Do you think that the governor of this state is going to certify an election if he's not the winner? Hell no. So it will go to the Senate. You see what I'm saying? And Mississippi, by the way, oh my God, poor Mississippi. Mississippi, you have a runoff on November 27th between a woman who actually said to a man in her crowd, she was talking to a crowd of people, and she said, if you invited me to a public hanging, I'd sit with you in the front row. In the state of Mississippi, where they had the most lynchings in the history of this country, they're in a dead heat. Okay, you got Mike Espy, who happens to be her Democratic opponent, who's black, and a former cabinet member. He was our former Secretary of Agriculture. And he's running against this no-name racist woman who was picked by the current governor of Mississippi to fill Thad Cochran's seat. She's just picked. Okay? Her name is Cindy Hyde Smith. And Mike Espy is the Democrat, and there's going to be a runoff election. In Mississippi, a Democrat has come that close. And so there's a runoff on November 27th in Mississippi. Well, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse for Cindy Hyde Smith, she has a press conference. And they asked her about this comment of, what do you mean you would sit in the front row of a hanging in Mississippi? What did you mean by that? And this whole press conference was 140 seconds. That's all it is. It's less than 2 minutes. It's a little more than 2 minutes. 5 times you're going to hear her say, I put out a statement. That's all I'll have to say about it. She didn't say she was sorry. She didn't say, oh, it was insensitive. Even if my opponent was white, I shouldn't have said it. Mississippi's got a terrible history of lynching. We actually have a lynching museum in Mississippi. Here's her press conference with Governor Bryant, who has to then speak for this woman who is so obviously not ready for prime time that he has to speak for her.
Put out a statement yesterday, and we stand by that statement.
Could you expand on it then, why you said it, what you meant by it, and why people in the state should not see it as offensive?
We put out the statement yesterday, and it's available, and we stand by that statement.
Senator, are you familiar with Mississippi's history of lynchings?
Oh, my God.
I put out a statement yesterday, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Oh, my God. You mentioned that it shouldn't be viewed with a negative connotation. Could you at least explain
I put out a
how
statement
it could be
yesterday, and we stand by the statement,
Oh,
and
my
that's
God.
all I'm going to say about it.
Is that phrasing in your everyday lingo, in your vocabulary? Do you use
I put out
phrase?
a statement yesterday.
Governor, you appointed her as a United States Senator. You have a huge black population that are looking for answers on why she used that kind of language. And you have worked to try to make it known that Mississippi no longer has that past. When you're hearing her say, I put out a statement yesterday, and that's all
I think she is, she's certainly addressing the fact that she has put out a statement. I can tell you all of us in public life have said things on occasion that we could have phrased better. When you make as many speeches as we do in public life, that does occur. But I know this woman, and I know her heart. I knew it when I appointed her. I know it now. She meant no offense by that statement. There was nothing in her heart of ill will. Now, in a political campaign, people can make anything you say what they want it to say. They can spin it. They can go on social media and accuse you of all sorts of things.
Governor,
she feels certain that, I believe, I won't speak for her, but that her statement spoke to it. Absolutely, we have been sensitive to race relations in this state. I brought the President of the United States here to open the Civil Rights Museum. And African-American leadership that would fail to even come to the event because the President of the United States was there. Today I talked about the genocide of over 20 million African-American children. You see, in my heart, I am confused about where the outrage is at about 20 million African-American children that have been aborted. No one wants to say anything about that. No one wants to talk about that.
Oh! There. Oh! My God. Okay. The governor of Mississippi, in defending words that were so offensive by the woman he picked to fill Thad Cochran's seat. I mean, Thad was bad enough. Now we got this woman who told a cattle rancher, when she was thanking him for his support, she said, quote, "If he invited me to a public hanging, I'd be on the front row with you." And he said, oh, well, you could spin that. You can make something offensive. What is non-offensive about that, number one? Number two, she said 5 times, I put out a statement and I'm sticking by that statement. I put out a statement and I'm sticking by that statement. Her statement was that she was giving praise to a guy in a way that, Mississippians do. Now, Bryant stands up and they're asking him, aren't you sensitive to the history of Mississippi? Why is this woman that you handpicked saying, I gave a statement and I'm not, and we stand by that statement. We put out the statement and it's available and we stand by that statement. I put out a statement yesterday and that's all I'm going to say about it. I put out a statement and we stand by the statement and that's all I'm going to say about it. We put out a statement yesterday and I stand by that statement. I mean, this is like junior high school awkward, okay? This is like really, really bad. So she's addressing the fact that she put out a statement and he's saying, well, on social media you could twist word, but I want to know why nobody wants to talk about the black genocide of 20 million aborted black babies. He just made that up out of whole cloth. That is just bizarro world. Nobody, keeps records like that. They're not it wouldn't happen. There's no number like that. He just made that lie up on the fly. What's not made up is that the most lynchings in this country, about 600 of them, happened in Mississippi. And there's going to be a runoff. Right after Thanksgiving, Mississippi, 37% of you who are African American really need to show up and vote for Mike Espy.
Connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Well, I heard what she said. I have to confess to you, I've never heard that type of colloquialism. That comment that she made was very disappointing and harmful. Disappointing to millions of Mississippians of goodwill, but very harmful because it again reinforced the stereotypes that we've been trying to get away from for decades, stereotypes that just continue to harm our economy and cost us jobs. And I don't know, I can't reach to her heart and determine why that came out of her mouth, but it was wrong.
Well, we got that whole history in our country of lynchings and, Billie Holiday and strange fruit, yes. Right? I mean, you know that history. You're not as old as I am, but I've heard about it. And there's even a popular song about the horror of lynching. It was called Strange Fruit, right? Something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Strange Fruit. I know that history very well because I'm on the board of directors of the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. One of the best museums in the United States. It's brand new, and it's got a lynching or public hanging exhibit, and it's visceral and it's sobering, and you just when you go through that, it's got a list of every Mississippian from Reconstruction through the mid-60s that were lynched, and it's got their name and the allegations, for that punishment, if you will. And you just have to come through there, and when you get through there, you just have to take a deep breath, Chris. So these comments from a sitting U.S. senator have harmed our state.
Seriously, that's Mike Espy, okay? And he doesn't want to go down in the mud with Cindy Hyde-Smith. By the way, this is exactly what her statement that she stands by said. It said, in a comment on November 2nd, I referred to accepting an invitation to a speaking engagement. In referencing the one who invited me, I used an exaggerated expression of regard. I'd sit with you for a public hang. That's an expression of regard, a colloquialism, and which, by the way, nobody's ever heard of. She says, but any attempt to turn this into a negative connotation is ridiculous. What is the positive connotation of a public hanging in Mississippi? Number one, I ask. And number two, why is Governor Bryant talking about a Holocaust of black babies? I swear to God, these are the most racist. The president of the United States is literally turning off the lights and letting cockroaches just roam freely all over our house. All over. It's an infestation of white supremacy that is now unleashed on the president is a contagion. He is literally contagious. I'm sick to my stomach about this. I got all these stories about how hate crimes are up by 37% against Jews and 17% against blacks it's just so sick. Mississippi, please, I'm begging you. You got another chance at this. You got a second bite at the apple. Please, November 27th, go and show up and vote for Mike Espy, who only wants to talk. You know, it's so funny. Everybody was pressuring him yesterday to say something about Cindy Hyde-Smith, and all he said was, this harms our state. And even after pressing him to say something about her, he said, you know what? All I care about is Mississippi is 49th in education. All I care about is we have no health care down here. That's what I care about. I want to do the right thing. I just want to go to work. I just want to do the right thing.
I've heard those comments as well, but I really have to tell you, we're just keeping our head down, running for 27th of November, going out to all around Mississippi, talking about health care and making sure that these rural hospitals stay open. Just try to make sure that we can protect, citizens who may be under the threat of uncompensated care, and expanding our public schools and making sure our students can graduate. So we've got our head down, not worried so much about Trump, but just looking at a victory on November 27th, Chris.
Well, sir, I've always thought of you as a good public servant, a very good public servant, and I appreciate your running. It takes guts to run for office after all the good thing you've done as a servant of the public, a public servant, and as an agricultural secretary and everything else. And I wish you well down there, Mike Espy.
Mike Espy, everybody. Mike Espy. Come on, Mississippi. Do it. That's a Senate seat. That's a Senate seat. We need the Senate seat, okay? Bill Nelson is not going to certify an election that he does. Bill Nelson, Rick Scott in Florida is not going to certify an election where he is not the winner. You got a runoff in Mississippi on November 27th and Georgia. I got to tell you, December 4th, I think there's going to be a runoff. I predict there will be a runoff in Georgia because a federal judge in Georgia found that Gwinnett County, which is the biggest county in Georgia, violated the Civil Rights Act. Can you believe this is? It takes your breath away. It's the third decade of the 21st century, and we still got the Confederacy. I mean, this is ridiculous. Mississippi, Georgia, Florida. The good news is there are opportunities for Democrats to pick up more of these seats and make this blue wave even bigger. The bad news is most of the trouble is in the Confederacy. Dixie used to be pure Democrat, and then the Dixiecrats decided that they would become Republicans, right? The solid South. These Republicans appeal to the worst impulses of the worst people. In Mississippi, you have a choice between a former cabinet official who is black and a woman who makes jokes about lynching. And since it's Mississippi, it's actually up in the air. you have to say that even things that fly in Mississippi don't fly in Mississippi anymore. You do. Georgia, I can't believe this, but the U.S. District Judge, her name is Lee Martin May, she wrote a 17-page order yesterday that Gwinnett County was found to be acting in violation of the Civil Rights Act with its rejection of absentee ballots solely on the basis of an omitted or incorrect birth year, and she ordered that they disregard immaterial things and count the freaking ballots if these were registered voters. And a different federal judge in Georgia ordered that state election officials preserve and count those provisional ballots in the governor's race. The judge also ruled that Georgia election officials will not and cannot certify this election until that happens. And so they extended the deadline for certification in Georgia till at least 5 p.m. on Friday. Okay. And the order that this judge, Judge Lee Martin May, wrote, there's two judges that have already weighed in on the crap that's going on in Georgia. Judge May's order said that Gwinnett County is hereby enjoined from, which means stopped, from rejecting absentee ballots containing an error or omission that is not material. You count the ballots. You count them. And if that happens, there will be a runoff in Georgia, and that will happen on December the 4th. And you can elect Stacey Abrams again. The people that brought this case are just ordinary Georgians. Rhonda Martin, Dana Bowers, Jasmine Clark, Smith Duval, Jean Crittenden, who is now the Georgia Secretary of State because Kemp recused himself. And it also affects a House race in Georgia in the 7th district, the 7th congressional district. That's also too close to call. You got the Republican Woodall defending against the Democratic challenger, Carolyn Bourdeaux, or Bordeaux. I don't know how to say her name. So you have all these. California is, slowly getting their counts in. We picked up so many seats. Darrell Issa's seat went to a Democrat. Yay! Dana Rohrabacher went down to defeat. Yay! I mean, there's so much going on with this freaking election because America cannot vote anymore. It's so bizarre. And everybody since 2000 for the last 18 years have been asking for clean elections. We've all been asking. We did the Help America Vote Act. That's how we got provisional ballots, because people were being turned away. If a non-handwriting expert decided they didn't like your signature, people were being turned away. If somebody decided they didn't like your ID, the people were being turned. And so they said, you got to stop turning people away. You have to let them cast a ballot and give them a chance to verify, whatever it is that you have in question about them. After the election is over, let them come back and show their ID, or let them come back and show their, whatever it is. And that's what all these ballots are. That's what they are. They're all these provisional ballots. They're absentee ballots. They're mail-in ballots. They're military ballots. They're people who live overseas who are still American citizens and are entitled to vote. That's what this is. And to have governors and senators say they don't know where these votes are coming from is unbelievably dishonest, and it's unbelievably dangerous. And alleging fraud where no fraud exists, putting doubt in the minds of Americans that their ballots will ever even count, saying machines are exploding, we need mechanics. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know about the antiquated machine that I voted on? This is sick. And you know what's really scary? This idea that Donald Trump started it when he was running about rigged elections, rigged. Everything is rigged, and there's fraud and election fraud, and hiring Chris Kobach and putting together an election fraud commission that found no election fraud, so that they had to disband it, right? Thank God he lost Kobach. Thank God he did. Although he'll probably get a cabinet position. Has he been indicted for anything? Because if he has, he's probably a shoo-in for Trump's cabinet. Been indicted? Join the GOP. Job openings for indicted, felons. Yeah, it's a necessary qualification. Got to have dirty hands so that the president can blackmail you. I mean, it's just so sick. But, they found no election fraud. But what we did find was a ton of voter suppression, a ton of it. We found purges, and we found felons lists, and we found middle initials, and we found, Roman numerals and spaces and periods and hyphens and all these things, disqualifying people, voter suppression, closing, voting polls, making so few polls available for early voting, making so few polls available for regular voting. Putting people's polling places outside city limits, saying if you have a P.O. box, you can't vote. Arbitrarily deciding, you can't vote if you have a P.O. box. I mean, the disenfranchisement plus the gerrymandering. This is why we call it a wave. You know what a wave means? A wave means that in spite of all the obstacles, in spite of the gerrymandering, in spite of the voter purges, in spite of the voter suppression, in spite of cutting down the number of polling places or moving polling places so far out of the city limits that you, unless you have, the ability to take off of work and reliable transportation, you ain't voting today, right? If we win in spite of all these things, that's called a wave election. And that's what we're seeing here as everybody slowly counts the mail-in ballots and the absentee ballots and the provisional ballots and all. And then there'll be runoffs. And the runoff in Georgia is going to be December 5th. They haven't declared that there is one. Mississippi, there is. November 27th. And Florida, I fear for us, man. I just think, we got ripped off of a presidential. The whole United States paid for Florida in 2000, and you ended up with George W. Bush, who got us involved in 2 freaking reckless wars, pissed away all the money, ran deficits, crashed the economy, and never really apologized for it. Just people said he was just dumb. That was the reason. He was just an idiot. He was just not up for the task. He was just a dumb president. People lost their houses. People lost their sons. People lost their daughters. People lost their legs. People lost their hands. People lost their arms. We lost trillions of dollars. And it was all because the Supreme Court picked the president in 2000 because Florida couldn't vote. Same damn thing's going to happen now with the Senate race, but Florida is going to be picked, the Senate race, by the Senate. And we're going to get ripped off again of a Senate seat. We're going to get ripped off again. God help us. Mississippi, we need that seat. Georgia, I pray to God. I mean, she is literally 17,000 votes away from a runoff election because they don't have any paper ballots in Georgia. So you can't have a recount. You have to go vote again. And now, knowing what people know, they will go and vote again. And Stacey Abrams really ought to be the first female black governor of Georgia. It's all Dixie to me now. It's all freaking Dixie. None of this can fly. All of this has to be talked about, understood, processed, and fought against. I'm telling you, if the Senate picks a senator, all bets are off. Democracy is dead. Now, I know the Democrats will try and challenge it and ask for proof of fraud or ask for proof of, vote tabulation. It won't matter because they're not in the majority. They don't have subpoena power. Mitch McConnell is that disgustingly dirty. He is that vile. He is that hateful, and he will destroy democracy in order to get the people he wants. We're in I don't know what to tell you. We're in serious trouble.
So, election updates still coming in as a Democratic candidate makes history and Vice President Mike Pence joins the president in denying defeat for Republicans. 4-term Congressman Jeff Denham has conceded his race in California's Central Valley to Democrat Josh Harder. And in New Jersey, Representative Tom MacArthur, one of the architects of the 2017 Republican health care bill, has conceded his race to Democrat Andy Kim. A former aide to President Obama, Kim will be the first Korean American to serve in Congress in 20 years and the first ever to represent the state of New Jersey. The updated count in California's 39th district shows the lead of Korean American Republican Young Kim has shrunk to just 122 votes over Democrat Gil Cisneros. And Democrat Katie Porter is now nearly 4,000 votes ahead of Republican incumbent Mimi Walters. But in an interview with NBC News this morning, Vice President Mike Pence says he thought the Democrats failed to make sizable gains.
We made history by expanding our majority in the Senate. We won some great elections in the governor's offices around the country, and we didn't really see that blue wave in the House of Representatives come our way. I think it's because the American people see the results.
They see the result. There are no results because he didn't do the infrastructure. He didn't do a health care plan. He didn't do a wall. He did. There was a blue wave. It was for real. And I got news for you. The numbers are starting to actually get firmed up and coming in, and except for Florida, Georgia, and Mississippi. The Old South. It's still, the Old South in so many ways. We use coal-fired voting machines in Broward County, apparently, and we need mechanics. Not IT people, mechanics. So that's where we are here in Florida. The hand recount. We need to do a hand recount. I swear to God. It's like, yeah. So it's kind of crazy here. But with that, minus Mississippi, there will be a runoff for your governor's seat on November 27th. We're waiting to see if there's going to be a runoff with Stacey Abrams and Kemp in Georgia. That would happen on December 4th. And we don't know what the hell happened in Florida yet. But that aside, we had a blue tsunami in California. No, really, it was huge. They are taking pen to paper in California going, oh my God, the Republican Party is dead. It's not salvageable in California now. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? It's one party rule in California. And oh my God, they're going to be all, like fresh air and clean watery. We won so far 34 House seats. There are 7 undecided and still, still being cast. So that would put us at 41? That would be the largest gain in 40 years in a midterm election. 40 years. So, I mean, Fox News wants to lie to you, and, people don't want to, and Pence wants to stand there. We didn't see the blue at you. We didn't, let them say what they want. This was huge. This is enormous. We flipped 7 states, went from Republican to Democrat in their state houses. We got 7 governors. As I said, we don't know, if that'll go to 9 with Florida and Georgia, being what it is, the Old South and all, right? California, the Republican Party is all but dead. I think you have 1 Republican representative in that delegation. I'm not, because they're still counting. But but another great portion of the blue wave is exactly what I sat here and screamed and spit out my spleen to get you to pay attention to, especially when people called me and said, why do we have to vote in California? It's all blue. Well, it's not all blue. And you still managed to elect a guy under indictment, right? You did get rid of Rohrbacher. For that, I am very grateful. But, you still got your Duncan Hunter over there who's indicted. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's like 60 counts. It's just nuts. But the Democratic wins are humongous in the state legislatures. And that is so important because we all see what gerrymandering does to us. We all see that since 2010, and the Republicans have controlled 36 states, and the maps that guide those 36 states, meaning the gerrymandering of your district, in order for you to be represented in your state locally on issues that you care about locally, like your schools, like water, like the budget, all the. So you got to look at Colorado, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Maine, Minnesota, 7 governorships, Nevada, New Mexico, Kansas, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Maine. I mean, this is significant. This is huge because we're going to have another census in 2020. And all the maps for the election will be drawn in the state houses across this land, okay? Also, the states are going to decide now with Democratic leadership and Democratic governors and Democratic majorities. They're going to decide in states that didn't expand Medicaid whether or not to take that federal money, like $700 billion sitting there for Florida. That's why it matters who wins this thing. There's $700 billion federal dollars sitting there. Florida can't take it because Rick Scott didn't want it, because Rick Scott, was trying to prove his bona fides as, being a guy who's on the side of, the big hospitals who don't want to see Medicaid patients, right? They just rather take you through the ER and charge me for your care. Well, I'm sick of it, and you should be too. But remember, the fight to pass and then repeal Obamacare, it's been in the national headlines for at least 10 years, but the state governments, they have so much power in how and where the health care law will be put into practice. And so these state legislatures are amazing. The redistricting, also state governments and local school boards, these are like really important things. And so while the blue states do support the red states, oh yeah, blue states pay, they get it back, for every dollar a blue state sends to the federal government, maybe they get 75 cents back, but for every dollar a red state sends to the government, you get back like $1.25, $1.79, depending on how poor your state is. And governors in red states have been incentivized to do exactly that, to take from the blue states and to, use that to balance their budgets. It's a sick plan that they have. But until these midterms, Republicans had this huge, huge majority. They had a huge advantage, controlling so many more state governments. They could draw the district lines. They had, all kinds of power over your school boards, and they had all kinds of power over your health care. Well, apparently Americans, got hip to this whole scam, and they voted, and they voted in droves. This was like the highest, was the highest turnout in a midterm election ever. Seriously, let me read 538. Okay, let me read from 538. And this is not today. This is 2 days ago. So the numbers are a little different today, and they will be a little different after the weekend, because the hand recount begins in Florida on Saturday. By the way, if you voted provisionally in Florida, you have until Saturday at 5 p.m. to show whatever it was that you didn't have with you when they made you vote provisionally and get your ballot counted, because a judge extended the deadline for you to do that because they said Florida violated and did irreparable harm to people who were denied regular ballots and forced to vote provisionally by not allowing them to cure whatever forced them to vote provisionally ahead of the close of the election. So we have court, Scott is in there, and Scott is lying, and Scott is at the Senate, and he's participating in orientation and all. And it's so bizarre because the race has to be hand counted, and it won't be started until Saturday. But anyway, so this is what 538 said. This midterm election saw an unusual trend. The chambers swung in opposite directions, and we knew that would happen because we had to defend so many more seats in the Senate than the Republicans did this time around. I'm not even going to explain to you again, okay? Senate isn't always, all the Senate seats are not up for re-election at the same time. Luck of the draw had it that Democrats would be forced to defend more seats than Republicans, and so it was a difficult, and that's why everybody said, we'll probably lose a Senate seat or two, and we did. But we don't know what the Senate makeup is going to be. We think it'll be, depending on these recounts, right? We think it'll be 51-49, which is kind of what it is now. So, but anyway, they say the Democratic pickup of 38 seats in the House, that number is even larger than 2006. The last time Democrats regained the House from Republicans in 2006, they acquired 32 seats. So this time we think we'd got 38 to 40 seats. And that would be the highest turnover in 40 years. 116 million people cast a ballot. That's about 49% of the eligible voting population. That is unprecedented. 23 states had double-digit percentage point increases in voter turnout compared to their 82 to 2014 midterm average. 82 to 2014, okay? In Georgia, Stacey Abrams and Brian Kemp's race, an estimated 55% of eligible voters tried to vote. We don't know if their votes were counted, but they tried to vote. That's 21 points higher than the state of Georgia has posted from 1982 to 2014. We have elected 114 women so far. That is the largest class of female lawmakers ever. And it's the most diverse Congress ever. This was a giant blue wave. So far we know we have 34 House seats. We got 7 still, counting. We have 7 governorships. 2 of them, Florida and Georgia, we don't know. State legislatures added 380 seats to the Democratic list. 7 states outright flipped from GOP to Democrat. California is dead to the Republican Party. It's not viable. It doesn't exist. And the president is sitting at home in a sullen, bitter mood, tweeting his ass off, watching Fox and Friends, and eating. Oh my God, he's like a scorned. I told you, ain't no fury like a woman scorned, right? I mean, that commercial was just so good. Well, here we go. Blue wave, everybody.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
This just happened. The Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is blocking an effort from a fellow Republican, Jeff Flake, who we were just talking about, to force a vote on the Senate floor on legislation to protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller. This coming even after the president just fired Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Republican Senator Jeff Flake attempted to force a vote today. The bill had been reported out of committee. And Flake just announced he will not vote to confirm any Trump administration judicial nominees if that legislation doesn't receive a vote in the whole Senate. Take a listen.
One further note on this unanimous consent request that has just failed today. Senator Coons and I are prepared to make it again and again until there is a vote on this vital bipartisan legislation on the Senate floor. And I have informed the Majority Leader that I will not vote to advance any of the 21 judicial nominees pending in the Judiciary Committee or vote to confirm the 32 judges awaiting confirmation on the Senate floor until S. 2644 is brought to the full Senate for a vote.
Now, that's not an idle threat, Simone, because let me just point out, Jeff Flake, if he votes against any of the 32 judges that come before the Senate floor, that makes it 50-50, and Mike Pence gets to be a tiebreaker. But that's still ugly that Pence has to do it.
Yeah, it's still ugly. So let's call Susan Collins' office, please, and have her commit to the same thing, that if Mitch McConnell continues to block a bipartisan effort to put legislation on the floor for a vote to protect Robert Mueller's investigation, then Susan Collins will commit, along with Jeff Flake, to not confirm in the lame duck Congress. I told you, this lame duck is so frightening because these are the dead enders. These are the bitter enders. These are the last people, okay? These are people that are leaving. They're going. They haven't been reelected. They're losing their seats, or they are trying to prove their devotion to Donald Trump, and they will vote through 21 judges who are still in committee to the floor and then vote them onto the courts by a bare majority. No more filibusters on judges, right? Or the 32 others who are also awaiting confirmation but are already out of committee. You're talking about 50 people being rubber stamped in 4 weeks, and we won't see the hearings, okay? It's just, this is bizarro world. This is crazy. Let me just fold this into the conversation real quick so you can get what the courts really do. There's a new Trump-appointed judge that is sitting on the court that is hearing the case, the emergency petition to the court to restore Jim Acosta's press pass because his constitutional rights have been violated. Okay, his First Amendment right and his Fifth Amendment right, which gives due process under the regulations that govern who gets a press pass. There are regulations that clearly say that you have a right to, address any of the complaints against you. You have the right to repair any of the complaints. Okay, and this has never happened. I mean, that one time in 1966, they took a reporter's credentials away. Okay, one time they said that he was a threat to the president or the president's family. It turned out to be bogus, but it took 11 years to make it through the court, okay? This thing with Jim Acosta is being heard by a Trump judge, a newly appointed Trump judge. His name is Tim Kelly, okay? And Tim Kelly was supposed to rule already on this emergency request for a hearing to decide whether or not Acosta... Well, I got news for you. He delayed ruling on it. He was supposed to do it yesterday. He was supposed to do it today. Then he said, tomorrow morning. I'll do it tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Let me show you what the arguments that are being made against Jim Acosta, against him, okay? The government has a lawyer, okay? And the lawyer is James Burnham, and that's Trump's lawyer. And he actually argued after it was shown that the press secretary of the United States used a doctored InfoWars video to spread an untruth that Jim Acosta had grabbed this intern who looks crazily like OPEX. Keep telling you this. It's like, he only has a type, right? But anyway, she placed her hands on him, and he went to block her grab and actually touched her and said, "Pardon me, ma'am." That is not assault. That is not unwanted. That is him being polite to somebody who is accosting him. And even though the court has seen that, the lawyer for the government, James Burnham, said, I swear to God, this hearing went on for 110 minutes. And here's the transcript. He said, "I don't think anyone would dispute if Trump wants to exclude all reporters from the White House grounds. He clearly has the authority to do that. There's no First Amendment right for journalists to be there." He also said that CNN and Jim Acosta's First Amendment rights weren't injured by the decision to exclude Jim Acosta because the network has other journalists with White House passes who could report in his place. Wait a minute. So you're saying you can deny Jim Acosta his First Amendment right and his Fifth Amendment right to address that this video was docked because there are others who could take his place? How is that an argument? And then he said this: Jim Acosta is free to keep reporting on Trump by watching television coverage of him. What? Watching television is the same as reporting, according to Republicans. Jim Acosta does have constitutional rights. He does have a right to keep his job. He doesn't have, there is no way that the president can abuse Jim Acosta's First Amendment right by saying there are other people who we can give the right to, or we can deny everybody their right. This is sick. Trump cannot exclude one person because he doesn't like their reporting. And the government is now taking the position that the president can do whatever he wants. This is the scene out of Goodfellas, okay? Where they go and they beat up, Karen's, they beat up Rossi, they beat up her boss because she wants to take off of work and she could do whatever she wants. Janice Rossi. This lawyer for Trump, and I swear he's a Justice Department attorney. This is how sick the Justice Department has become, and now Whitaker is in charge of it. This is sick, okay? He said CNN isn't really harmed. It's just for the benefit of reporters that Trump doesn't find so disruptive. Jim Acosta is not disruptive, and even if he was, you can't take away his First Amendment right because he was disruptive. all despots, all autocrats, all oligarchs say that the press and the people are disruptive. The president has constantly said that CNN is the enemy of the people. The court knows this. How is it that they can't grant the emergency restoration of Jim Acosta's press pass? This is just, weaponizing the Secret Service for political purpose. Do you realize how freaking dangerous all this is? I mean, we would go over like every sign that you're supposed to look for when democracy is on its deathbed. And of course, the militarization of police, check that off. The uber nationalism, Trump says he is a nationalist, check that off. The misogyny, check that off. That women are, somehow inferior and men must dominate, check that off. Just hating the press, blocking the press, wanting state-run media, propaganda, check those off. I mean, we are here. We are absolutely here. Disdain for human rights, yes. IDing, a group of people as being the enemy. Rampant sexism, controlled mass media, obsession with national security, intertwining government and religion. This is what Whitaker says. Whitaker was saying, that all judges ought to be Christian. And he didn't, there was a question, should they be Levitical or should, like Old Testament or New Testament? Really? What kind of crap is that? Corporate power is protected. Labor power is suppressed. Disdain for intellectuals. Disdain for the arts. Obsession with crime. Rampant corruption and cronyism. We have freaking Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, as the secretary of everything. What is Ivanka doing there? No one knows. I mean, it's all that's the whole list, and we're there. Okay, we're there. And he already tried to block any critics of his on Twitter, and the federal court wrote, quote, "The continued exclusion of the individual plaintiffs based on our viewpoint is therefore impermissible under the First Amendment." Meaning, you can't block people that you can't take down their Twitter feeds because they're disagreeing with you. You can block them, but you can't, the court held that you cannot trample on others' rights. I mean, it's all here. And what is the president tweeting? He's tweeting some off the wall stuff this morning. Okay, just some crazy. He's talking about the Mueller investigation all over again. He's talking about universities. He's talking about that they have to study that Bob Mueller was never Senate approved. He doesn't need to be. He's an inferior officer. Obviously, he reports to now Donald Trump's spy. I don't know if no one knows. Was Mueller forced to brief Whitaker? Because if Mueller was forced to brief Whitaker, then Whitaker is now the spy, and Trump knows what Mueller has, and that's just sick, okay? But, he wrote, universities will someday study what highly conflicted and not Senate-approved Bob Mueller and his gang of Democratic thugs have done to destroy people. I got news for you. Universities and medical schools are going to soon be studying your tweets. And law schools are going to be studying you. I mean, today's tweet meltdown from Donald Trump, it looks like somebody challenged him to go out there and write a chapter on projection. If somebody was writing a movie and they scripted a tweet storm like this to make Trump look insane, they couldn't have done it this well, and the notes for the tweet exchange would probably say, don't make it so obvious that the president is crazy. Nobody would actually say this. He tweeted, "The inner workings of the Mueller investigation are a total mess. This is what scares me. How does he know unless Whitaker was briefed and told him?" He said, "The inner workings of the Mueller investigation are a total mess. They have found no collusion and have gone absolutely nuts." Oh, yeah, I'm getting really fed up with all these tweet storms from Mueller. So, but this does beg the question, what does Trump know about Mueller's team's inner workings unless he's getting it from his spy, Matt Whitaker? His acting attorney general. And then he tweeted, "They're screaming and shouting at people, horribly threatening them to come up with the answers they want." Oh my God, can anybody picture ex-Marine Robert Mueller even doing that? Or here's a better way to look at it. Can anybody imagine Donald Trump not doing that? I mean, he's like an orange Shih Tzu just barking at the mirror. He sees his own reflection and he goes crazy, crazy. And then he tweeted, I swear to God, this did not stop. And then he tweeted, why didn't the FBI take the server from the DNC? You know, this is Captain Queeg with the strawberries. You know, this is him. Strawberries, strawberries. And then he tweeted again that universities will someday study. You know, one of two things have happened. Either Trump is crazy, has gone crazy, or he's gotten tipped off that Don Jr. is about to be indicted. I don't know which it is. You know, well, did I say one of two things? That was three things, and it could be all those. All right, then. I correct myself. I stand corrected. I mean, this is just off the hook. And people are now writing articles about whether or not the president is, well, is he lazy? Is he inept? Is he an authoritarian? And the conclusion, he's all of those things. He's all, I mean, not even to pay his respects to the veterans on Veterans Day, right? I mean,
I think the Europeans are aghast at almost everything we're doing. The president went there for one reason. World War I, in many arguments, is the most consequential war in our history. It changed everything. And we took 300,000 casualties, essentially in a 6-month campaign. We put 2 million soldiers and Marines into Europe, more than the French army. We had 2 million more coming. Their sacrifice saved civilization in Europe. That's what the president was there to acknowledge. And to be honest, I think he just wanted to stay out of the rain, eat cheeseburgers, watch TV, and tweet angry denunciations of his many enemies.
That's General Barry McCaffrey. I mean, when you have generals actually speaking about a sitting president, you know something is off the hook wrong. Something is so terribly wrong. Something is so akimbo. And then Donald Trump, bizarrely clueless, tells the Daily Caller, quote, if you buy a box of cereal, you have voter ID, people are going around in circles voting again and again. They put on a different hat, put on a different shirt. They come in and vote again, and then they go and buy a box of cereal and have to show ID. Yeah, you're shaking your head, Brett, because it's just like so crazy, right? No, he says if you buy a box of cereal, you have voter ID. This is what he's saying. If you have to buy a box of cereal, do you think that Donald Trump has ever been in a grocery store in his life? Do you think Donald Trump has ever voted in his life? I mean, these are can you imagine Donald Trump in a supermarket? Where's the Big Mac aisle? Where's the buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken? Where are the taco bowls? I mean, you know, he actually told the Daily Caller that people go around in circles. They change their hat, they change their shirt, and then they go, you know, I have explained to you how difficult it is to vote if you haven't done it. If you have done it, you know how difficult it is, especially if you live in a voter ID state, okay, where you have to sit in the chair, show your driver's license, they scan it, then you go to the next chair, then they ask you if you got a mail-in ballot, and if you're going to surrender it, you fill out that form. How are people doing this over by changing their hat?
Connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. I would like to promise and pledge to all of my voters and supporters and to all of the people of the United States that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
Oh my God, that's another point of fascism, is no faith in elections or rigged elections or not accepting the result of elections. We're here. We are here. This is crazy that we got this far in just 2 years. And where are the Republicans? There are no Republicans anymore. It's the party of Trump. Republicans are dead. The party doesn't exist anymore. You know, it's so funny because, like, people go, well, Democrats were the Ku Klux Klan or whatever they say, right? Those were Dixiecrats, and the Dixiecrats became Republicans. So now the Republican Party is dead, just like the Dixiecrat Party died. There is no Republican Party anymore. It's the party of Trump. And the party of Trump is fascism. It is a party of white supremacy. It is a party of sowing doubt and fear. It is a party of, not accepting the results of elections, not even letting people have access to the ballot box in the first place. It is this party of uber nationalism. I'm a nationalist, okay? I'm a nationalist. It's a party of disdain for human rights and law and order. You know, the law prescribes that the people coming into our country are allowed to make a claim for asylum. He denies that that is the law. He doesn't follow the law. He does what he wants to do. You have a Justice Department guy who's under FBI investigation. You've got people in this country voting for dead pimps. You've got people in this country voting for indicted Republicans. I mean, I don't even know if Chris Collins won because that's one of the elections that's, yet to be determined. But people voted for an indicted felon. It's just so unbelievable. You've got a president that swears that he could change the Constitution with an executive order on birthright citizenship, which, by the way, you hear nothing about anymore. You just don't hear about his birthright citizenship claim that was all the rage like a week ago when he told Jim Vanderhei at Axios that he doesn't even need a piece of legislation to change the Constitution. He could do it by executive order, and he could demand that people who are born here are not citizens. He could decide that, even though it violates the Constitution. He wants to control the media. He wants to say, that I don't have freedom of speech. You may not understand, that Jim Acosta's First Amendment rights are being violated because they're very clever in their stupid argument where they say, well, there are other people at CNN who could cover the White House. It doesn't have to be Jim Acosta. That's like saying to me, I don't have a First Amendment right to say what I want to say over here on this show because there are other people out there who hold microphones. Do you know how stupid that is? You can't deny me my First Amendment rights because there's somebody else that also holds a microphone. That's just so ridiculous. And that is what they're arguing, ridiculous things, because he wants to control the media. He's even asking if somebody friendly would buy CNN. He's blocking a merger because he wants somebody friendly to come in and buy CNN. I mean, you've got the mix of government and religion. Of course, you have labor power suppressed. You've got corporations getting everything they want. They deregulation to run roughshod over us. EPA, let them do what they want. Let them throw coal ash. Let them pollute the water. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just, I mean, this is a sick thing, and it's here. It's freaking here. They lied about this tax cut. They just outright lied.
The Tax Cut and Jobs Act will deliver real relief for people in the middle, people who are also striving to get there. With this plan, the typical family of four will save $1,182 a year on their taxes.
$1,000.
For many families, having an additional $1,182 more will make a real difference. That $1,182 more covers about a year's worth of gas for your car. It covers your family's phone bill for the year, depending on how much data, of course, your kids use.
I mean, that was just an outright lie, okay? It's just an outright lie. The price of gasoline has eaten it up. The price of health care has eaten it up. The cost of living has eaten it up. Inflation, interest rates on your mortgage, eaten it up. I mean, this is just crazy. And of course, the bulk, everything, 87% of this tax cut went to corporate America, who was already uber profitable. So you could check that off, corporate power protected. And disdain for, they call them the Hollywood elite. Why? Because they're artists, because, they're smart. Disdain for, professors. Why? Because they're educated. I mean, they hate the educated. They hate them. Trump, I love the undereducated. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. It's all happened. And we have to live through this lame duck. Got 4 weeks of this. And they're just going to rubber stamp these. That's why I'm saying Susan Collins better get invested in this. Either they protect Mueller so that we can have an answer to the question about whether or not the president conspired with a foreign adversary who he's indebted to or he's blackmailable by, or he's a money launderer, or whatever his crimes are or aren't. We need to know. And we need to know freaking now, because this man is destroying our democracy, literally destroyed it. It's barely functioning at this point. You couldn't vote easily in this election if you lived in the old South, in the Confederacy. I mean, it's just amazing to me. My vote has not been counted because the machines blew up yesterday. They literally, were like steam engines, and they had to send for mechanics. To what? Go to the foundry and forge new parts. Scott in mid-Maine. May I help you?
Yes, Randy.
Yes,
hello,
sir.
First-time caller.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, I have a field report from the blue tsunami up here. And by the way, you're on a roll this afternoon.
Yeah.
I know. And but you're absolutely right about the Party of Fascism.
Yes.
And their mascot is now an orange Shih Tzu.
Yes. Orange is the new white.
Out of my head for weeks.
Seriously. Yes.
So anyway, we had a transformational candidate up here named Jared Golden in the 2nd District of Maine.
Right.
And he was just announced the winner today
he was.
over Bruce Poliquin.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
in the
watching
race.
Bruce Poliquin's race. I have it here somewhere. But yes.
So that is number 35.
All right, let's mark that down. 35 is decided. It's Maine. What district do you know? Just so I can mark it off.
CD2.
Which one?
Yeah. CD2.
2. Okay, great.
Yeah, unfortunately, we only have 2 districts.
Is that right?
So, yeah. But hopefully, as Maine goes, so goes the nation, because ranked choice is really a great thing for voters.
I'm very proud of us. I really am. I mean, I kept saying there's a blue wave. I was running commercials. There's a blue wave, and we make it happen, and we did. We did. And they're denying it, except the president knows it's happened. He knows it, and that's why he's all bitter and nasty right now.
Well, it's an interesting race up here because it's gone under the radar, I think, largely because of Florida and Georgia. But
because I mean, Florida is it's bizarre. Georgia was just a hideous story. North Dakota, nobody talks about either, and that was just hideous. If you had a P.O. box, you couldn't vote. Where does it say you give up your right to vote if you use a P.O. box for your mail?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much voter suppression in this country. It's rampant. And that's why the state legislatures and the governorships are so freaking important. Congratulations to you also on the governor.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and we took back about, I think, a dozen seats in the House and the Senate.
Oh, that LePage dude,
huge.
he was such a poison, that man. I never understood how Maine elected him.
Well, at 36%, that's how they elected him.
Yeah. Oh, do you have that crazy system, don't you? You have first and second choice and all that, right?
Well, yeah, that's the ranked choice system that we voted in twice by referendum.
Well, that's how Poliquin was. That's what Poliquin was asking the court. See, I actually am following I'm following as much as I can. It's hard because there's 435, but a lot of them have been decided. So now I'm down to just a handful, like 7. So I could watch Maine. Yep. So Poliquin went to court, and he asked the court to stop counting the votes because he didn't like the first and second choice setup that the voters voted in. He says it's unconstitutional, and I guess he lost that argument.
And he lost the argument to a Bush appointee, which was really interesting. So you should read the decision on Bangor Daily News website because he eviscerates their argument.
Beautiful. Okay. So just so you know, I'm watching. So now I'm down to 6 races I have to keep an eye on. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. All right. Have a good evening.
Thanks so much for calling me. So that's great news because this Poliquin guy, he was the Republican, okay? And he was in court saying, the way that Maine, you rank your choices, okay? You say, this is my first choice, and if they don't get X amount, then this is my second choice. And Poliquin was saying it's unconstitutional, but Maine voters had chosen that way when given the option to choose how they would vote. They chose that way. And apparently I have to read the decision. But yes, it's on my list. So I could cross it off. That's one less to follow. All right, Mike in Fort Collins.
Ooh. How are we this fine afternoon?
We're all right, everybody. Get off your speakerphones. I'm answering the phone right now. Go ahead.
I'm off of it.
No, not you. I'm talking about people waiting behind you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Turtle mentioned yesterday that he was not going to defend Mueller or bring up a bill to defend Mueller.
Yes, to protect him.
Right. To protect him. Yeah. His college fraternity in their mission statement has two things: ethical leadership and exemplary character. Now, Mitch must have been out of the room when that was brought up, because that's initiation 101. And I think he kind of forgot that.
Oh, please. He's a slimy scumbag is what he is. He
is.
Always has been. And now he has entirely too much power, and it has gone completely to his turtle face. I mean, this man is brutal. He's ugly. He hates the Constitution. All he's interested in right now is packing the freaking courts.
Yep. Absolutely.
So,
can I make another unrelated comment here real quick?
I guess you can. It's free speech. It's a free speech zone.
Well, I grew up in the 3rd Congressional District of Kansas, where Sharice David was elected.
All right.
And probably going to go back sometime in the spring, and if I can find her campaign office, I'm going to give them the biggest bouquet of flowers that I can find.
Yeah. Kansas, I can't believe we run the governorship there, too. Kansas is now a blue state. I mean, it's just so good. It's so good.
Well, Kobach.
I mean, Kobach. What a piece of poison he is. I mean, that guy was anathema to the people of Kansas, and they got it. This fake, voter fraud commission that produced zero evidence of voter fraud, but caused all this voter suppression. People in Kansas, just said, no. Listen, the president lost the freaking whole. Well, we know the Northeast is all blue, and we know all of California is blue, but what we don't really talk about is the Midwest is all blue now. Wisconsin is blue, Michigan is blue, Pennsylvania is blue. These are the places that by 0.2% ended up going for Trump in the Electoral College, okay? These people know that they did not intend for Trump to be president. Something really strange in voter suppression happened, and they want to know what. Because now that they've had a chance to vote since they were responsible or, accused of being responsible for making him president, they went back to the polls and they said, no, we're not. So Wisconsin blue, Michigan blue, Pennsylvania blue. These were places where the election for the presidency was decided by 10,000 votes. And believe me, it was voter suppression. It was people that were believing that Hillary Clinton was a pedophile. So, people are, like I said, there was not just a blue wave. There was a blue tsunami, and it was in the states. It was all over the place. It was governorships and state legislatures, houses, senates. I think there's one Republican left in all of California. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Scott Walker lost college-educated voters by 13 points. Pennsylvania, they sent 4 women to the House of Representatives. 2 Democratic incumbent, Governor Tom Wolf and U.S. Senator Bob Casey, double-digit wins. Double-digit wins. Michigan, Democrats won races for governor. U.S. Senate picked up 2 U.S. Formerly GOP seats. This was just amazing. Wisconsin in the Senate race, Tammy Baldwin, big win there. Cut into the blue-collar base, 47% of whites without a college degree switched over. Michigan, Democrats took back the governor's mansion. They got the attorney general's office for the first time in 8 years. Debbie Stabenow was easily reelected, and you have 2 newcomers, both women, Elisa Slotkin and Haley Stevens. They flipped 2 House seats in Detroit, in the suburbs of Detroit, that had long been Republican strongholds. This was a blue freaking wave. They just don't want to say so. The Republicans don't want to admit it. Fox News will never tell you this. It was huge. Huge. Now I get to change my number to 35 House seats. 6 undecided. Thank you, Maine. We have 7 governors that we flipped, and we don't know what's going to happen in Florida and Georgia, so it could be 9. 7 states flipped from GOP to Democrat. Okay, California it's dead to the GOP. Kristen Olson, who is a Republican political operative, wrote the California Republican Party isn't salvageable at this time.